Ketogenic diets do better when saturated fat is replaced with polyunsaturated fat. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you would please click the like down below, it would be greatly appreciated. If you're not following or subscribed, please do so. And if you will be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. So one of these topics, and keep in mind, these days I pretty much bro diet it. I'm not saying I don't ever mess with low carbs for phases. I generally do that from time to time when I want to drop water weight or whatever. But I tend to also really like bro type diets, chicken, rice, vegetable diets. They work great, time proven. But let's get over to ketogenic diets. The problem with all the keto zealots is that they're basically essentially science denialists. They don't look at research. They don't look at objective research. They try to find very small amounts of biased data while ignoring everything else that's a problem. Ketogenic diets have their set of problems, and they're in denial of it. And they go under these assumptions, especially when they go into like the carnivore or ketovore approach to where it's all red meat, all butter, all the saturated fat, right? They add tons and tons of it. The problem is it doesn't work. Meaning when you compare and look at studies, right? Look at studies and look at people who do what we call, it used to be called clean keto, to where you eat healthy fats instead of all the junk, right? And plenty of people had great success on that. But when you start looking at the data, you look at studies like the epilepsy studies, or we look at just studies where they sit down and take people in a metabolic ward, keto researchers, like the researchers who are really genuinely interested in keto, okay? Because a lot of doctors and researchers don't want to touch it at all. But let's take the ones who do, and they're genuinely interested in it as having potential for certain medical applications. So they do research it. And the epilepsy stuff, what they found with all those the studies that have looked at it, people who fail to get epilepsy response from the higher saturated fat keto, what some studies found is that when they switched them over to high polyunsaturated fats and removed the saturated fat, dropped it down to normal suggested levels, what happens? Their epilepsy symptoms improve. They get a better medical response, all right? So the same stuff when studies have been done to where they take people into groups on ketogenic diets, like true keto diets, guys, where we're talking 70, 80% fat calories, which is what a keto is. What happens? The saturated fat groups, when compared to the polyunsaturated fat groups, including when they use seed oils, and this is where we need to be clear. And I'm not over here pimping seed oils. I don't think we should be eating refined fats in just a straight pure fat form. My objection to seed oils is just like my objection to butter. This doesn't make a lot of sense, right? To isolate fats and remove a lot of their nutritional value when they came from perfectly healthy foods to begin with. Okay, doesn't make sense. It's insane, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense, especially then to refine it. And butter is refined. People will argue otherwise. I'm sorry, you don't have a rational argument. And they'll say, well, it's only just skimmed, creamed off, and then churned. Come on, stop. The churning is a chemical process. It changes the molecular level of the substance. And it doesn't matter that you've molecularly changed a substance through a mechanical stress applied over time or through another chemical process. It's still a chemical structural change. And I don't know what's so hard for people to get that through their heads. And the simple reality is, even on these keto diets, so when they're compared, the seed oils beat the butter. But let's step over and just look at, just in general, any of the data out there. And no, you guys can go look these studies up yourself. I'm not risking strikes. I will never link another study again on YouTube the rest of my life. I got a strike for it once, had to appeal it, and they redid it over and over, and I kept having to appeal it, and I gave up. So I'm done. Never doing it again. I don't care. So you guys can use Google like the rest of us. Now, back over to the point. This is easy to find, and anyone who claims to be interested in keto has probably seen this data and ignored it. Don't pretend you haven't seen it if you've studied keto. What do they find? When the saturated fat is all replaced with polyunsaturated fats, almost irrespective of the source, whether it's canola oil or nuts and seeds or whatever, what happens? All the health markers improve, okay? Better HDL, better LDL. Now keep in mind, keto denialists or science denialists, they're in denial that LDL is the cause of atherosclerosis. They don't look at the data. They love to bring up that large and small particle without realizing the large particles cause atherosclerosis also. It's just not as bad as the small particles. They still cause it, by the way. You don't want those too high either. But I digress. Back over to the point. LDL is lower. HDL is higher. That's your good one. LDL bad. Triglycerides are still even lower. Triglycerides, we all agreed triglycerides are bad. Notice everyone agrees there. Everyone who's keto, low carb, high carb, every expert and group all agree universally we don't want elevated triglycerides. Okay? That seems to be the one point with lipids everyone agrees on. Everybody. Okay? Better triglycerides. Better insulin sensitivity. Better fasting glucose. Better inflammatory markers. So even when a ketogenic diet is done and keto is compared to keto head-to-head in the studies, polyunsaturated fat beats saturated fat across the board, all these markers. Okay? And if people are going to be in denial of that, we have a real problem, because we're now in the case of, this is the pro-keto researchers who have an open-minded approach to this sort of diet, who are like, we need to understand it better. We need to look at the variations of it. We need to see where the good stuff lies. Okay? The saturated fat, even on a keto diet in large amounts, is still harmful. And we see it in the data. And the second you replace it with healthier fats, all the blood work is better. Okay? What does this tell us? And the same thing, I'm going to get into the topic of gaining muscle. Saturated fat causes more insulin resistance. That is going to interfere long term with your muscle growth on top of it. You want insulin sensitivity. Right? The healthy fats improve insulin sensitivity. This is desirable. This is what we want. So let's set aside all the other health stuff. Let's talk body composition. Long term, this is what you want. Okay? Polyunsaturated fats win. They win across the board. And anyone who wants to talk about inflammation or whatever, except that they reduce inflammation. Even the refined ones still slightly reduce inflammation in the lab, and the saturated fat tends to increase it. What are they even talking about at this point? This is what the data shows repeatedly. There's not really an argument to be had. You can study stuff over and over and over, and then when you look at the data, you're just arguing against the data at this point, just saying, oh, all the data's wrong. But you have nothing to support the opposite, other than a conspiracy theory. That's a problem. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.